Caitlin.
This is P&W Haunts and Homicides. We're currently recording in my very highly probably haunted apartment.
Yeah. Some shit just went down, creepy people.
Oh my god. Yeah. That was the dogs.
Okay.
That was the dogs.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I think it echoed back that way and I was like, the closet.
Yeah. Dude, I know.
The closet.
Ugh.
I'm about to go sit in there by myself after this and take the mic with me.
Yeah, she's...
Full on ghost hunter mode.
I know. You're supposed to be the one who's like down with all of this spooky, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit numb to it in this space now. And it really used to freak me out, but like now I'm kind of just addressing it and telling it when it does stuff that's like really not okay.
Yeah, stuff that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. I didn't tell it the last time it set off the smoke alarm that wasn't cool. Basically, the smoke alarm just went off, and it was like one loud, short beep, though. Yeah. It wasn't like when your fire alarm or smoke alarm is dying where it just like chirps periodically.
It's not the chirp. It was the beep.
But it didn't.
And then it didn't keep going.
It didn't, yeah. It was so weird. And my dogs immediately were like on high alert because it's a loud noise, but they just were a little bit beside themselves.
Yeah.
More so than usual with a smoke alarm. So.
And I had thought that so Caitlin had just walked from the kitchen into the bedroom and was in the bedroom when it happened. And I was in the bathroom and I thought that she was still in the hallway. Like I just heard or like felt that someone was still in the hallway, and I thought she was like right under the smoke alarm when it beeped, and she was like, no, I was in the bedroom.
Oh my god, we need to just literally never stop recording because this was in between two recording sessions, and I can't even believe that. Accentuated by somebody like doing the Tokyo Fast and Furious drifting out there.
Jeez.
Wow. I wonder if the mic caught that.
It might have.
Yeah. That was pretty loud.
Okay.
All right. But aside from my seemingly more frequent ghost stories, we are going to get right into the case, but really quick, right before you forget, because it was about to happen, we will also be sharing at the end of this episode the section of Brian's interview that we're sharing in the regular feed. And we're really excited for you guys to check out what he has to say about the book and about the case.
Yeah, it's a really cool interview. He has such great insight to add to the episode. It's really, really cool. And then if you guys want the full interview and the video, you can sign up for our Patreon, and that is all available there.
Yes, the Patreon. It's where all of the good shit happens, you guys. Today, we're telling you the final chapter of the case series about George Weyerhaeuser, who in 1935, at 9 years old, was heir to one of the wealthiest families in America and was also kidnapped in Tacoma. Aww. The kidnappers, to varying degrees, some of them I would say kidnappers is a little bit overstating it. They were a career bank robber, a petty thief, along with his good girl, 19-year-old Mormon wife. That's the other thing. She's so young.
Yeah.
I know it's not uncommon for women at that point in history to have been married at that age, especially in the Mormon church, but it's just very young. And she was not a worldly woman, you know?
Easily, like, taken advantage of.
I think so. Yeah. So the trio quickly became targets of the biggest manhunt in Northwest history. Ooh. Maybe, honestly, I'm wondering if the ghost was like trying through whatever means to provide commentary on the episode.
Maybe it's Margaret.
I mean, do you like it so far? Oh, God. Margaret, girl, like I said what I said, okay?
We're sorry. We get it.
Oh, that was so weird, though. All right. Shaking it off. All right. The investigation into George's kidnapping was hailed as a 7-day wonder by the Seattle Times after the capture of Harmon and Margaret Whaley, even as William Mahan, the third party in the abduction, was still on the run. But feds weren't sleeping on any opportunities or leads. 25,000 federal identification orders on Mahan. So this is fingerprints, photos, details of his personal and criminal history were rushed to the Pacific Northwest by airmail, which airmail was a much bigger deal back then.
Yeah.
They were also receiving additional assistance in their investigation from George, because he's back now, you guys.
Oh, George.
He had been covertly transported to Spokane from Tacoma to confirm the house in Spokane had been one of his holding locations.
Wait, they took him there?
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like that's... I don't know. That would be kind of rough. He did not have a super traumatic experience in the ways that we at least stereotypically think about, but oof,
still,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
it's
a lot.
all traumatic, no matter what. If they treated you nice, you're still kidnapped.
I mean, you have been taken.
You have been tooketh.
Yeah. I like that. You have been tooketh. Oh my gosh. Meanwhile, the legal drama was beginning to unfold for the Whaley couple following their arrest. Margaret's family was able to retain an attorney on her behalf, which it seems fairly standard for the position that she was in. Get a lawyer.
Yeah.
But even this seemingly straightforward action led to speculation about how the charges would come down and what the trio's ultimate punishment might be. Well, you see, anyone that was convicted under the Lindbergh Law, we're getting back to it.
Yes, I'm curious.
Would get life in prison.
Oh, shit.
While the state of Washington had a penalty far more harsh. The death penalty.
For kidnapping?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were not fucking around with that.
Washington?
Washington!
I don't know why that's so shocking. I expect it to be like in the South.
It just feels very extreme. And I think it's kind of because of the proliferation at the time of these types of ransom kidnappings.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I get it. But.
Yeah. Whew. So when it came to the Lindbergh Law, two things needed to be determined. Whether the victim was kidnapped and then taken over state lines.
Mm-hmm. Couple times.
That road trip is going to cost you. So, which obviously the Whaleys had already indicated did happen in their confessions. Not looking good so far. The second element was whether or not the victim had been harmed. This is a little bit trickier, given George was returned ultimately unharmed physically and seemed to be doing quite well otherwise as well.
Yeah, but mentally...
I mean, honestly, well, there's conflicting reports.
Yeah.
We'll get there. This piece of the law was untested to this point, so what might constitute harm under the federal statute was really anyone's guess. So going back to exactly what you're saying, emotionally, psychologically.
They put him in a fucking trunk in a hole and left him in the woods. He could have died.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, he could have easily died in the woods.
I mean, it wasn't their intent to hurt George, but,
I mean...
Your intent isn't the only thing that matters when it comes to the commission of a crime, because the end result, you can still be held responsible for. So
and should be. You freaking took this kid.
I mean, you took him.
You did the first step.
Him.
Like, yeah. You took it.
Oh, I'm never getting over it.
Oh.
It's important to note that the Weyerhaeuser family had released a statement indicating that George had been through quite an ordeal and was a sadly shaken little boy.
Aww.
Special Agent Connolly, who had been in charge, bolstered this claim. If you were held for 8 days, wouldn't you be harmed?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a valid argument there to be had, but we're going to get through some of the legal stuff here. So, Based on some of these statements, you might be getting nervous for the Whaley couple and their clearly impending doom. And certainly they were as well. Which I gotta say, Harmon gave his wife like the literal worst pep talk when they were in prison. Because they were actually imprisoned in cells that were like across a hall from each other.
Well, that does not seem okay.
Yeah.
Like...
yeah, it's one of those parts where I was like, oh man.
You're just giving them opportunity to get their story straight. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that really doesn't work that well. So, importantly, the method of execution in Washington in 1935 was hanging.
ooh, ew.
Yeah, not my fave.
My neck hurts.
Yeah, me too.
Bit neck lady.
Ooh.
Sorry.
The use of capital punishment was eventually abolished in October of 2018 in the state of Washington, not long before Oregon wrote its own shitty legislation on the topic, referring back to the Dayton Leroy Rogers case.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that being said, executions were actually somewhat rare in the state of Washington even at this time, averaging less than one a year from 1849 to 1963.
I have a question about
Still
that.
a fuck ton of them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. I'm
Okay.
wondering, so did they still like let people watch it like they used to, like out in the street? Or was it like
I don't think so. But I can't say that for certain.
yeah. I don't know why I'm so curious about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it does add something to like kind of an element of like brutality and like sort of, it's kind of cruel and unusual.
But then would they have done it inside in like a room? Like,
I don't know where
How
they would hang you.
we'll have to look it up after this.
Yeah, we will.
Or someone email us if
Update.
you know.
Yeah. Or email us. That'd be great. I don't really want that in my Google search
I want to know.
history.
Yeah.
You know what? Just kidding. Obviously, my search history is highly suspect. I'm on
All the watch lists.
Yeah, probably a few. So, all right. Mid-June in 1935, Hoover reveals they found one of the holding pits. So remember, this is literally just a large in the sense of like, I don't want to have to dig a hole this large myself, but not large necessarily considering George's relative size. So they found one of the holding pits.
Ugh.
And then he speculates wildly to the press and offers other drivel for them to report. I don't think that his statement actually adds that much value to the story in this format, but it was interesting. And it was fed to the press. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess every once in a while, even a blind squirrel finds a note, right? I just was like, I can't believe they actually were like, oh yeah, we got to report this. And I'm like, why did it? But he knew that he had to try to feed the press something because obviously they've got people like night crawling and kidnapping George to try to get his story. So like,
ugh. I was wondering like why he would even say anything to the press, but
I know, because then you're just gonna have people tramping through the woods trying to like get pictures of it and whatever.
Ew.
Shortly after, the grand jury proceedings began without any incident. The jury of 17 men and 2 women were selected. How very progressive.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, I was actually a little surprised that they would allow those delicate flowers to serve on such an unspeakably dark case.
It's too much for your little ears.
Your delicate constitution. But, I don't know, win one for the ladies?
2?
I don't know. Yeah, or 2. Yeah, 2, technically, I guess. Yeah. So too bad the press and the public would set that back several points with their comments about Margaret throughout the trial.
Oh.
Guess we can't win them all.
Margaret.
Well, I just thought that the comments about her being plump or plain were pretty unnecessary.
The fuck? Why do they need to comment on her appearance? I thought you were going to say her just mental state?
I mean, they had a lot. Everybody's got a lot to say about Margaret. So, yeah, if a ghost set off the fire, the smoke detector, it might have been her.
Girl, I'm plump too. I get it.
Well, so here's the thing. Is I know that, definitely like body standards were a little bit different back then. But in my estimation, based on the height and weight that, we have from the book, she was probably pretty waifishly thin in all reality.
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, I have a general sense of like what her like frame was like. I don't know her exact height, but she only weighed 120 pounds.
What?
So, yeah.
Oh my God. Were they saying plump in a different way? Like,
oh no, they were literally dragging this woman saying like, she's not attractive. She's plump. Yeah, no, it's exactly what it sounds like. So I'm not saying this book put me on a diet, but I did start a walking challenge for October.
God.
So I'm not going to provide all of like the details about that here. Even if I knew exactly how tall she was, we're not talking about her measurements, but I just feel like the 120 pounds, that has some impact because I'm sitting here at like 5 foot nothing and I know I weigh at least 121 pounds. So I don't know. It's just because first of all, with these comments, but I don't want to do the same thing to anyone else who's listening and feeling a little self-conscious about their COVID-19.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to touch the plain comments, but I'm glad that Brian didn't leave out any of the blatant sexism or misogyny. I mean, it's part of the story. It's part of the history, definitely, of that time. Yeah. So, lucky for Margaret, all speculation about her appearance aside, mercifully, it had been determined that George had not been harmed based on the interpretation of the meaning of the Lindbergh Law. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's probably more due to the times because they weren't looking at it nearly so much in terms of like psychological harm. Yeah, they were definitely looking at it from a more physical perspective. Yeah. I would say it's a little bit more strict.
There's no like PTSD talk and
right. No, we didn't. No, that's not a thing we were talking about at that point. Margaret and Harmon were indicted and held on $100,000 bond. They were then transported separately to Tacoma for their arraignment. When it was time to enter their pleas, it seemed that would also come and go more or less uneventful. Harmon pled guilty pretty much as was expected. When Margaret too pled guilty to both counts levied against her, Harmon was compelled to address the court. This is literally probably the only time you're going to be like rooting for this guy a little bit.
Okay. Interesting, but okay.
Mm-hmm. She never knew anything about the kidnapping. She didn't know we had kidnapped the boy until the Sunday following the kidnapping when we were in the car and the boy spoke and asked if he couldn't get out. Then she knew we had the boy. Although she rented the house in Spokane, she wasn't told at the time the house was rented that the boy was to be kept in the house. I never told her anything about this, and she never saw any ransom money, and I never told her that we had any ransom money. So as far as I know, she may have suspicion that we had ransom money, but I never told her, and I know no one else did.
She had the money in her hands and was spending it.
She probably could have put two and two together. Yeah. That's fair.
But I mean, I guess technically it's
He's
good
just
to say
saying,
that you never told her.
Yeah, it's just plausible deniability that in actually, we'll get to it, but you'll see that there's, situations where it's like, okay, if she's guilty of this, you would assume, A plus B equals C, but
yeah.
So he had nothing to say in regard to the case against him, but he just clearly wanted to protect her any way that he could. Unfortunately, Margaret still insisted on pleading guilty, even in light of Harmon's statement, to the puzzlement of the judge.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I mean, this is a situation where you're just like, Margaret, Come on, girl. The judge said, I will not sentence on a plea of guilty qualified by any such statement. So the judge actually did her a real solid. I mean, kind of.
So he said, like, I'm not going to accept your guilty plea?
Yeah.
That's...
It's interesting.
It's interesting, and it slightly pisses me off because she is a woman. She made her own decision to plead guilty, and you're just like, no, honey.
I think I don't know. I choose to see it in a positive light.
I'm just like, fuck.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think the judge is seeing that in the eyes of the law, based on the information that he has, there's no reason he would accept a guilty plea. And he's trying, I mean, God love him, trying to lead a horse to water. I don't think it's like, you're too stupid with your woman brain,
That's
half the size of a man's.
Yeah.
I think he just really thought, okay, she clearly doesn't understand, like, how these legal proceedings work.
Yeah.
In terms of the charges, I'm not sure that she understands all of the implications. I don't know.
Thank you for reining me in.
I don't know. I mean, benefit of the doubt. I'm trying real hard. So the judge simply decided that pleading guilty was not in her best interest, so he wasn't going to let her.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's what we're going to choose to believe. The following day, Harmon's sentence was read by the judge. Harmon got 45 years, and the judge ordered him to pay for the cost of prosecution, which was $20.
Oh. How's he going to pay for that? With the ransom money?
Honestly, I don't know. How's he ever supposed to pay for that with prison wages?
Boy.
Assuming that he's assigned some sort of work duty.
Yeah.
It's really neither here nor there, but I just thought that was funny. So, but back to poor Margaret. She went to trial. I don't know that I'll ever understand why her case worked out the way that it did, especially in light of the fact that George testified. So this is where it gets truly cuckoo, bonkers, batshit, bananas.
Bat guano.
Mm-hmm. The prosecutor asked him, George, you never saw this lady here referred to as the defendant, did you, during the entire period? First, leading the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. I was like, I wanted to chime in, but I was like, I know she's going to point it out.
Also, but like, so this is coming from the prosecutor. Wouldn't that be a point for the defense?
Interesting.
So I don't know what was his point in bringing that up? Okay, so this line, you're going to laugh at this now because was someone pumping this courtroom full of nitrous or carbon monoxide? And our freaking smoke alarm goes off in here. So creepy. All right. This is not a ghost story.
That we know of.
All right. No, what this is it's about to get silly. George looked right at Margaret, directly into the optic stems in her eye sockets, dead into the windows of her soul, and said, no. Okay.
Did he really not?
He really, literally neither of them ever saw each other.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That was really ridiculous. I couldn't help myself.
I liked it.
Okay, well, I didn't write it. It's... Oh. I'm sorry if you guys are not Key and Peele fans. I'm sorry that it's missing from your life, number one.
It's missing from my life, and now I need it.
All right, yeah, you're going to have it. And I'm sorry that you won't get this joke. And we'll just think that I'm being ridiculous. Maybe the fumes are real, ha ha, it says in my notes. Oh my God, I'm so fucking freaked out right now. Anyway, Margaret would testify that while she suspected her husband and Mahan had kidnapped the Weyerhaeuser boy, they never confirmed it, and of course she hadn't ever seen George to be able to do so herself with her own eyes. Because Mahan had threatened the lives of Harmon and herself, she had been too fearful to report anything.
Okay.
She was too afraid that he would make good on his threats and kill them both. Here's the other thing that I find kind of interesting. She believed that while they were in Seattle, Mahan had gone so far as to have her watched. Now, by who, I don't know. It's certainly possible, but as there are no other known co-conspirators that were ever revealed, it seems unlikely.
Okay.
But, if you want to speculate wildly, come up with some crazy crackpot theories, some conspiracies, here's your fodder, folks. So, though if Margaret believed it at the time, her inaction, it would make all the sense in the world. If you think that someone's literally going to come and kill you if you reveal this crime, kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Furthermore, as we discussed, when Margaret was introduced earlier in this series, she was a good, wholesome Mormon girl.
Yeah.
Obedience to one's husband was expected and clearly not a tradition that she would have broken with.
Mm-hmm.
In closing arguments, she sure was painted with an entirely different brush. They characterized her as a remorseless woman and a pitiful dope.
Oh, so which is it? A remorseless woman or a pitiful dope?
Oh my God, thank you.
I feel like you can't be both.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's where it gets really nasty. I feel like this is particularly problematic given her specific Well, you'll see. Okay. All right. Just spit it out, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. They even went so far as to disparage her in what I think was a really shameful way for such a young and naive woman from her ultra-religious background. You see, the government was claiming, at least in the courtroom, that this kidnapping had to have been a 3-person job. They kind of had it in their heads that there was a woman involved. Okay. And so they said many of the most famous gangsters used women in their crimes, which is not untrue. But again, they just threw out like all of these wild theories. One of them, they decided, all right, let's just throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. So they hurled this accusation of infidelity at Margaret.
Ooh.
They were simply trying to liven the story and scandalize the jury. Honestly, that's what I think. The idea was posed that Margaret and Mahan may have been having an affair throughout the entire ordeal.
I don't think she would do that.
I don't buy it. And like her husband has been with her for most of this. At a certain point, Mahan and her are off on their own and it's just Harmon back at the Spokane house with the boy. But who has time for an affair when you're already committing this type of a crime? Ridiculous. Anyways, perhaps worst of all, the hits, honestly, they just kept coming. Her own lawyer disparaged her at length. All right, guys.
Her lawyer.
Okay. Yeah. To be fair, he was trying to do it in her defense, but it was pretty ugly. And I quote, I've met a lot of stupid people and maybe dumb ones.
Okay.
But never have I met anyone whose stupidity is as great as this girl's. She was just a dupe for these two crooks. If her husband should send her a telegram ordering her to jump off this building, she'd do it.
Oh my God.
He argued that she hadn't knowingly commit any criminal acts or wrongdoing. Again, quoting here, silence, acquiescence, or consent do not constitute a crime. What did she do that any wife would not? Yikes. Just so much yikes. In the end, he asked that the jury take a piece of paper that he proffered and write down the things that she actually did. Now, while I hated the bulk of his argument that I read previously for you guys, with the fire of 1,000 suns, that was a pretty good idea. And honestly, I feel like that's like the 1935 version of if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
And I'll give it to him. His conclusion was very eloquent. Gag me. So he said, I want you to remember that mine is the only voice heard in this courtroom that isn't being paid. This case means nothing to me in a monetary way. The court did me the honor to entrust the defense into my hands, and in my entire career, I have never felt more deeply the responsibility of an attorney. With that, the judge reminded the jury, I mean, man, he's just really trying to look out for Margaret and doing his damnedest. With that, the judge reminded the jury that the burden would be on the government to prove that Margaret was guilty of the charges brought against her, beyond a reasonable doubt. I'd like to think that he raised his eyebrows and emphasized reasonable doubt.
Did they still wear those wigs back then, or was that
I don't think so.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever said.
I don't know that it's the dumbest. It might be up there, but... So apparently the judge saw the writing on the wall because Margaret was found guilty on both charges that had been put forth.
She was found guilty?
Yeah.
After all of that?
Makes a lot of sense, right?
Oh my God.
I just feel like there had to have been some sort of lesser charge that would have been more applicable. But
yeah, like accessory to...
accessory after the fact, or I don't... Whatever. I'm...
Law.
Fucking lawyer. Lawyered! Margaret, you've been lawyered. All right. Following the trial, Margaret was sentenced to 20 years. She did not pursue an appeal as her attorney would have liked. Still, she was steadfast in her devotion to her husband, Harmon Whaley.
Ew.
Well, that is until she reached the jail in Michigan via train, where she would serve her time. Whereupon, she took the hardest left I can think of.
Ooh.
And stated of Harmon, if it had not been for him, I would not be where I am today.
No shit.
He didn't get a third of what he deserved. And also that she was, quote, through with him and all men forever.
Yes, girl.
Well, I mean, don't throw her a parade yet, all right?
I mean, it's about time, though, right?
Okay. After serving 13 years of her 20-year sentence, she was released and immediately divorced Harmon. It was like the first thing she did. She did later remarry and lived in Salt Lake City until her death at age 74.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So,
did she marry a man?
As far as I know.
I was just curious. Because she said she was sworn off men.
I know. That's why it's so confusing.
We've all said it.
We've got another promo roll that we are really excited to share today.
The music used in the following promo is called Town of Fables by Brandon Fichter.
What's up, everybody? My name is Brian, lead investigator of a paranormal team in Spokane, Washington called the Spokane Ghost Crew. My team's been together for 7.5 years. We've done over 150 investigations, both in and around the Spokane area. We've been featured in several newspapers around the Northwest. We've been on several podcasts, including A Nefarious Nightmare. And one of my scariest moments was in our first investigation where I was physically attacked twice. I was pinned down. I had things thrown at me, and it was just a nightmare. My second scariest moment is when we went to Colfax, Washington to St. Ignatius Hospital. By the way, we beat Ghost Adventures there, neener, neener, neener. And I had an entity follow me home that ruined my team for over 6 months and almost ruined my marriage. This entity was so strong that it bedridden me, and I yelled and screamed at anybody that opened that door. It took 6 sagings and 3 blessings to get it to go away. Hey, if you want to find out more about the Spokane Ghost Crew, you can look us up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Google, and Clapper. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this podcast because I know I am.
You guys, we're back. Hi. Back to these two dastardly men. You like that?
Yeah.
I went like full blown 35.
I like it.
It's 1935, y'all. Mahan in particular. Just shy of a year goes by before William Mahan is finally caught on May 7th of 1936. He had checked into a hotel on Mission Street in San Francisco. He checked in late the night before, and guys, he's so dumb. He's so dumb. He forgot that he had left a large amount of cash in his very conspicuous vehicle.
Oh, oops. I left all my money.
Yeah. And in this, like I said, it was a very noticeable vehicle just from the time. I won't go into it because unless you just know about 1930s cars, like who cares? But he went to retrieve it. As you do, you know, if I leave my phone in the car, I'd go get it.
Exactly.
You know? All right. So he went to retrieve it, but what he couldn't have known was just how hot law enforcement was on his trail.
Ooh.
Stay
common.
It's so good. It's so good. Although maybe he should have, since he was a wanted man. And the hotel was across the street from the Justice Department headquarters.
No, it wasn't.
It really was.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding, Cassie. Like, there was a story about a diamond heist that he was involved in. It just, you would piss your pants laughing.
How was he involved in a diamond heist?
Oh, honey. There's so much to unpack on this man.
Is that in the book?
It is. Oh, great. It's in the book. Okay. It's in the book. You can take it home today.
Oh my God.
When he briefly left his room, the officers rifled through it. So literally he goes down one set of stairs, just like in the movies. He goes down one set of stairs, law enforcement's going up the other or something. Though, of course, they did not find him there. Luck wasn't quite on his side on this day, though, because he's gotten lucky a few times. This would not be another near miss like in Montana months prior. They knew what plate to look for because they could see that the vehicle was registered to him. Dude, I'm telling you, don't be making these large purchases. That can be traced.
At least change your plates, man.
Oh, man. All right. So they knew what plate to look for and quickly found him sitting on the car's running boards. He's just sitting there sunning himself, literally. He was arrested without incident, and while he admitted to the William Mahan identity, he would not immediately confess to the kidnapping. I mean,
yeah. Why
whatever.
Would you confess to something?
Whatever, broski, we got you. So this was actually a career-making arrest by, at the time, the youngest bureau chief in the service, Wayne Listerman. Wayne had a fucking fantastic day.
Nice.
So while some might be dedicated in the profession for many years, numerous chiefs would not make an arrest this big throughout their whole entire career, let alone when they were basically still a fresh-faced baby kid officer. Mahan was booked and, of course, held for federal authorities with his bail set at, do you want to guess how much?
$200,000. Yes.
So we don't know. No idea if that was mere coincidence or if it had been planned.
It was planned.
I mean, personally, I think it's hilarious either way. At least he wouldn't have to face the stress of wondering if he would face the death penalty as the Whaleys had.
Yeah.
That was already decided in the previous court proceedings. He pled guilty to both charges he faced. He was quickly sentenced to 60 years.
Dang.
Harmon, and especially Margaret's journey through the court system were decidedly more interesting. But don't worry, there are still some truly bonkers surprises in store.
Wait, there's more?
Oh, there's more.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So, hey, guys, let's check in on Harmon.
Okay.
He was serving his sentence in Alcatraz.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hey, Caitlin, do you know what the worst thing about prison is?
What?
The Dementors.
Oh, my God. Oh my God, we've been watching the Harry Potter movies, so that,
yes.
like, for me, that was topical.
That was from The Office, by the way, just FYI.
Well, see, then Chris would get it, because he's only recently started watching the Harry Potter movies, but he's obsessed with The Office. So Harmon, he's serving his sentence in Alcatraz when a prisoner died under sort of seemingly fishy circumstances.
What?
I'm just going to simplify. Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So that may be a case or something I'll talk about another day.
Huh.
We'll see.
I'll be waiting.
As the inmates became aware of what had happened, an uprising began.
Ooh, shit.
Harmon Whaley was one of the leaders in this struggle.
An Alcatraz uprising.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, dude.
An Alcatraz prison riot. A riot broke out. They put the riot down. After that, a hunger strike was started. Harmon among the men that would partake. Okay, this is... All right, guys. Trigger warning. The hunger strike ended fairly abruptly when forced feedings were imposed.
I'm very confused on this. Why do they care if they...
Because it looks bad to have a prisoner die in custody.
But they're
But forced
starving
feedings
themselves.
are that's incredibly inhumane, obviously.
I just, like, why would you want to keep paying for this person to live if they don't... I don't know.
I mean, I feel like they...
I guess I get it. It's
the
like
the prison was
suicide
problematic in so many ways.
and-
We don't even have enough time if I sat here and recorded for another 3 hours. So
Okay. Ugh, forced feeding.
forced feedings. So I don't love that as a part of the history of our prison system, but I can't say that I'm surprised, given the checkered past of many prisons and certainly of Alcatraz. In the 29 years that Alcatraz was actively used as a prison, there were over 30 escape attempts, but none were successful that we know of. Harmon spent 22 years of his sentence there, which was a record, apparently, for the longest continuous stretch at the prison.
Wow. Why did they send him there?
I don't know.
Wasn't that for, like, really, really bad criminals? Or
It
am I
was.
just-
Oh, okay, don't name any names because I got some names.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say who this was because I don't think that anyone will know who he is anyways. But one prisoner might have actually beaten him for this record if his sentence hadn't been broken up by a stretch at Leavenworth. So I don't know if you guys know anything about Leavenworth. There's one that's like a small, like, Bavarian town recreation in Washington. It's not that one. It's the prison one. The place where they send, like, really hardened criminals.
Ooh.
Okay. Mahan, not one to be upstaged, apparently. At various points of his incarceration, attempted suicide. Got into fights with the likes of Al Capone.
Jesus.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that guy.
Fought with Al Capone?
Oh, yeah.
The fuck?
I know. It's weird, right?
Was he at Azkaban
I mean-
too?
Azkaban?
Was he?
Yeah. Dumbledore was there.
Fucking Jesus. I was just talking about Dementors. Was he at Alcatraz too?
He was, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah. But he also got creative because he was very good with his hands and apparently fancied himself rather clever, which, I don't know, you care to weigh in here? You think he's really that?
I don't know if he's
mixed
that
results.
clever.
Okay, but, I mean, points to him for this, no. Just no point system. He made makeshift guns in his cell. I don't know how. I don't understand.
They actually worked?
I mean, they were very makeshift. There's a little bit more information about this in the book that kind of goes into explanation on this, but I was like, I cannot wrap my head around this.
Google, how to make a makeshift gun.
Alexa. He tried to use knowledge of weapons in the prison to his advantage and win himself a pardon.
Okay.
But it gloriously backfired.
How would he think that would work?
Well, okay. It doesn't matter. The warden was not coming up for his bullshit. Because basically what he tried to do is say, oh, there's 2 makeshift guns in the prison and I know who has them.
Oh, okay.
So he tried to basically trade the information for, I
didn't make them or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
but-
they're not mine. a hole in his mattress was discovered that matched the size and shape of the makeshift guns that were then discovered in a neighboring cell. While he didn't get his pardon, he was eventually released from prison in 1965. He died at 92 years old in September of 1992. I mean, undoubtedly he was awful, but what a crazy life.
Yeah.
I mean, can't say it wasn't interesting.
Dang.
Whew.
That life review must be just everyone's sitting there watching it with him.
Oh my God, no. I mean, you don't even know because Harmon is really like, they're literally just going to take turns just topping one another. So what about Harmon?
Yeah.
You know, that guy. Well, eventually, while he was still serving his sentence, he began to write to George. A lot.
Ooh.
He was eventually released in 1963, at which point he contacted George. And get this. He asked him for a job. A freaking JOB, place of employment listed as Weyerhaeuser.
No. What? What would make you think that that was okay?
Well, okay, that's not even the weirdest part.
Oh.
George was 37 at the time. He was pretty high up the food chain at the family company, and his father had already passed. Guys, you're not going to believe this, but I promise I didn't make this up.
Oh.
George hired his kidnapper.
He hired him?
He gave him a job driving a truck.
He did not.
He did.
Why is he like the best person on the planet?
I don't know. Okay. All right. I've got like maybe one or two more gems here for you with George, and then that's a wrap, people.
He's either like real sweet or just like admired his like balls for asking.
I don't know. I can't wrap my head around that.
It's real hard.
Yeah. Brian's interview with George took place in the spring of 2019. It was just over 84 years after his kidnapping as a child.
Jeez.
George shared with Brian that the kidnapping was, quote, not a sensitive subject for me. It happened a long time ago.
Oh.
They talked about how when he returned home, his parents went out of their way to treat him as if he were normal. They even let him keep walking back and forth to school.
Oh my gosh. Do you think they had him like secretly followed though? Because
I
I
don't think
probably
so.
would.
Okay. Well, okay, hold on. Let me take that again because there's a second part to that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They even let him keep walking back and forth to school.
Oh.
Figuring, according to George, you don't expect lightning to strike twice.
Oh my gosh.
His school teacher even reported that when George returned to school, it was like nothing out of the ordinary had even happened. George said he never really struggled with nightmares, paranoia, or PTSD. All right.
Wow.
Okay, you guys. Are you ready?
No.
This is so precious.
I'm not ready.
Perhaps the most charming detail of this story is what we're going to end with. George asked, "How long do you think it will take to write the book?" Brian replied that it would likely take a couple of years. To which George replied, "I'm almost 94 years old. Write fast." Is he not the best?
Oh my gosh.
So
He is literally the best.
I love him. George, I love you.
Oh.
Now we're going to share a portion of the interview that we did with the author Brian Johnston of Deep in the Woods. We know you guys will love to hear from him. And if you want to hear more details from Brian about their interview, the case, or the book, you can check it out on our Patreon feed. We will be uploading our video interview, though not in entirety for this one, because at the end it did contain some spoilers that we weren't ready to share with even the Patreon.
Yeah. Gotta listen to the episode.
Exactly.
Or read the books.
It will be available to all subscribers at any level. We are talking to Brian Johnston, who wrote Deep in the Woods. Yay! Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have some prepared questions, and we're hoping that some of these will be kind of an interesting thing for you to be able to expand on. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious about how you ended up arriving at the title, and I have an idea, but I won't say anything else.
Well, the publishers came back. The original title was 21 Demands, because that's how many demands were in the ransom note.
Oh,
And the publisher came back and said, nope, not good enough.
Uh-oh.
So they threw out a few suggestions, and I came back and said, nope, not good enough. And then I compiled a bunch of like 15, 20 different suggestions. And this is the one that they agreed on. They liked Deep in the Woods because the woods, it's the Weyerhaeuser Corporation, but also because that's where George was kept by the kidnappers for part of it. They took him and they buried him in the ground. They dug a hole in the ground and put George in the ground for a few days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, chained up in a hole in the ground. So
bizarre.
It was a good way to sum it up. Deep in the Woods.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was kind of my assumption. After you get to the end, I was like, okay, I think this makes sense, but not really knowing anything about the case, the title, when I picked it up initially, I was like, I'm just not sure. How does this tie in? And then I love the back and forth. I always assume that there's some back and forth with the publishers and editors about this content or this title, those sorts of things. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I was super excited. I assumed, and probably, perhaps a little bit presumptive, but I assumed that we were going to hear, George had passed before, the book was finished or, something like that. So I didn't expect there to be a section where you actually, would be able to talk about your experience of interviewing him.
Yeah, so that surprised me too. That really surprised me. So it took me a while to track him down. It really did.
Like that, yeah. They're private.
And I finally got a hold of a phone number, and again, it took a while. And I called, and it was a voicemail, and evidently they checked it like once a week.
Oh gosh!
That's what I learned.
Oh no!
And so I called, and I just said, George, this is Brian Johnston. I'm a local author, and I'd love to interview you about your kidnapping, unless it's a really uncomfortable subject for you. Sure. I said that because in any articles that I'd read, I kept seeing family members saying, George, doesn't like to talk about the kidnapping.
Yeah.
So I didn't think he would be willing to chat. Yeah. 3 days later, I get a phone call, and it's George saying, Brian, this is George. Happy to talk with you. It's not a problem. Happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Wow. Sure. Great. Yeah. Awesome.
That's amazing.
So I got to go to his house and sit down with him and chat for a couple hours. And at the very end of our interview, he said, Brian, how long is it going to take you to write this? I said, probably about 2 years. He goes, Brian, I'm almost 94. Write fast.
I love that. I love that. That is just the essence of everyone's grandpa. I mean, yeah. I thought that was really cute.
Interestingly, I just got an email from his daughter, and she was saying that she's had a lot of interesting conversations with her dad about the kidnapping, which has been unusual because he never talked about it when they were growing up. Never did. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like he didn't really talk about it with his own parents. They really wanted to just clean break, clean slate, really move forward from that event and let him feel as normal as they could. So it's probably kind of been a lifelong strategy for him, really, to kind of not
evidently
dwell on it.
Yeah, evidently, because he, as I asked him, I said, in college, did you use, it's like the best pickup line ever, did you ever talk to girls and say, I'm George Weyerhaeuser, I got kidnapped or anything like that?
Yeah.
He said, nope, never did.
Wow. That's too funny. Well, and it seems like as a group, everything that I've read about them, it really seems like they're just a very humble, very genuine, but also very private group. So it kind of doesn't surprise me in a way that that's not something he'd really spoken to his daughter about, maybe in
No,
any depth.
that's pretty much the hallmark of the Weyerhaeuser family. They just like to keep quiet, keep to themselves, not draw a lot of attention. That's just the way they've always been, it sounds like.
So I thought it was really interesting to hear about kind of the perceptions through the media of what he was like as a child. And, kind of from some of the people familiar with the matter or, friends of the family. But I'm curious, I think we got a little bit of a general sense. He was obviously much older at the time of your interview in 2019. But what was George Sr. really like? I mean, other than, obviously motivated to have you finish this book.
He was a nice guy. He really was. When I got to him, he was sitting out on the back, porch by the lake, just hanging out. Nice guy. Good looking guy. In fact, I asked him, I said, George, how old are you? He says, I'm 94. And I'm like, holy crap, I should look so good at 94. But he was, he was funny. He was nice. He was chatty. He really got a big kick out of when I would show him like pictures of himself when he was a little kid on the newspapers and things like that. He just thought that was funny and cool. So.
It is.
That is so cool.
I mean, okay, I'll turn to there's one at the very end of the book, if I recall. So I'm going to show this to Cassie because he's
oh my goodness,
basically the cutest thing that ever walked the earth in this little
in his little sailor's
uniform.
I think he's like 8 years old in that picture. I think it was about a year before he was kidnapped.
Yeah,
the hair is on point too. Look at that.
I know, very clear, just dapper.
Yeah,
dapper all around. Do you know if George actually read the book and what he thought?
I just talked with his daughter recently, and she has read it, and she's enjoyed it, which took a lot of stress off of me, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah,
no kidding.
And I think George is currently reading it. George is 96 years old right now, and he's dealing with dementia. 96 years old, and so but he's doing okay other than the dementia. So, but best of my knowledge, they pointed out there were some. His daughter said, there are some things wrong in the book. And I'm like, that doesn't surprise me at all, because when I was doing my research, I was coming across so many inconsistencies. Okay. One source said one thing, another source said something else. And so I would just kind of did my best trying to cross-check between the court records and the newspaper articles and the FBI documents and my conversation with George to try to do my best to get the accurate information. But, plus the newspapers, they kind of ran fast and loose back in the 30s.
I was going to say, it's surprising you could find so much based on the reporting was very much Wild West style. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was. But you have to understand, it was such a huge story at the time. It was a huge story at the time.
Oh, of
that
course.
There was no lack of material out there. I mean, I found, like I said in there, over 200 articles. I mean, there was the Times of London sent a reporter across the globe to cover the story here in Tacoma.
Wow.
And
that blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And the New York Times had it on the front page. I mean, this was on the front page of just about every major newspaper in America at the time. It was a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Really kind of right on the heels of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. Mm-hmm. And so that was still very much present in the public's mind at that point.
It was 2 years after the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, but the Lindbergh baby kidnapper had yet to be sent to the electric chair.
Yeah.
So it was top of mind. Kidnapping was still a very popular crime in America at that time, even though they almost always failed. But they still kept trying.
Yeah, and my gosh, I really can't fathom why it was so popular. In the sense that, you talk about in the book that in the state of Washington at that time, I don't know how common it was across the states, but that was punishable by the death penalty potentially. So
That's
you,
crazy.
I mean, it make me think twice. That
Yeah.
thought ever crosses your mind.
Yeah.
Well, there was one article that was again, newspapers looking for content. They went and interviewed a kidnapper who was in prison, like in Kansas, and he says it never crosses your mind that you're going to get caught.
Right.
It just
The
never crosses
hubris.
your mind.
Yeah.
This was kind of a burning question for me, especially as we got towards the end of the book and we talk about your in-person interview.
Mhm.
I was curious, how long did it take you to write the book? I feel like you
Mhm.
had a little bit of a time crunch. And not just because of Georgia's age, but with COVID and the fact that this isn't necessarily the only project that you're working on. It sounds like you and I may have some things in common where you're trying to do a lot.
Yeah, I like to be busy. I like to be busy. No, it probably, oh boy. I first stumbled across the story about 4 years ago. And when I was just looking for content to write about the Pacific Northwest. And I just stumbled across it and read a little bit about it and went, oh, this seems kind of interesting, and tucked it away and really didn't do anything with it for about 2 years. Then when I went back to it, I started doing more research, and the more research I did, the more fascinated I became. And then I realized this is an astonishing story. I need to follow up on this. And so once I really got into it in earnest, it probably took, I want to say, close to a year, I would say, of research and writing. Yeah, about a
Wow.
year, I think. And
Yeah.
then process of trying to find an agent and then trying to find a publisher and then getting it published took about a year plus as well, a year and a half.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's the part that would be so frustrating for me. We just have to get Apple Podcasts to approve us and then we're good to go. We got the green light. But
That's the trick.
yeah, absolutely. So did you pick it sounds like you obviously wanted to write about the Pacific Northwest, and I checked out your website and you obviously it's a bit of a trend for you. You write about a lot of stories in the Pacific Northwest. Is that just because you grew up here or
Yeah, pretty much. I'm born and bred Seattleite. And so, I wrote the JP Patches book. Anybody from my era, was raised on JP Patches. And then I wrote a book on the TV show Almost Live that was on for 15 years as well. And again, then I wrote kind of a JP Patches-esque book called The Second Meanest Man in the World. But then was just looking for new material. Yeah, that was really about it. And so the story, just astonished me that nobody had written a book about it. Absolutely blew my mind.
Yes, I'm blown away by this.
No, it was such a fun book to research and write because, I kept stumbling across things and I'd like, no way, there's no way something cooler can happen. And then there's no way something cooler can happen. It just constantly just kept coming and kept coming. And, when you're digging through 2,500 pages of FBI documents, and the FBI was like, you want more? You want more? And I'm like, no, I think 2,500 pages is plenty. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
the
newspaper articles and the court documents, and it was just a flood. So there was no lacking in material to draw from. That wasn't a problem.
It definitely reads like a novel. If you handed the book to me with, paperback style, take an old grocery bag and cover it up, and I didn't know that it was a true story, I would definitely think, well, this is a fantastical story. This is almost just like too bizarre to be real.
No, you can't make this stuff up.
and some of the pieces that it's like there's so many different interesting aspects, but one of the things that I kept saying is they can't possibly do anything dumber than this.
One of those.
They're career criminals. They're about to be fired. They're really bad at this.
Yeah. Well, they didn't think everything through. Let's just say that.
Yes, just to be brief on that topic. Okay, I think that's a good lead in because I definitely am curious. There are so many things that I flagged in this book that, I fancy myself as, something of I wouldn't say a history buff, but I'm always interested and I try to absorb whatever I can. There was so much here that I just thought, like, that's the wildest thing I've heard so far. This is the most surprising. I can't believe this. Every other page. I think probably my boyfriend's looking at me reading this book like, what? What?
Are you okay?
What? Yeah, exactly.
I was constantly running upstairs, yelling at my wife, "You cannot believe what I just learned." That type of thing.
Gosh.
Regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we probably perpetrate a little bit of abuse on our partners. Like, let me info dump all of this on you. You need to know this too. So I was curious. You've had some more time to reflect upon it, but what do you feel like is the most surprising thing that you learned through your research?
Oh boy, what was the most surprising thing? There were so many surprising things. Probably the most surprising thing was how it ends. And I'm always reluctant to give away how it ends.
Yeah, don't give away the ending.
I can vouch for that, though.
Yeah, that's.
I was shocked.
All I can say is that most kidnappings don't end well. Okay. This one ends about as well as you could possibly imagine. I know that's a little bit of a spoiler, but here's my attitude is when I went to go see the movie Titanic, I knew the boat was going to sink, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. The ending of this book will restore your faith in humanity. That's the best way I can say to describe it.
It really does, because there's definitely, and it's not a reflection on your work, but there's a lot in here that you go, why do people exist? So by the end, that's a really satisfying conclusion to come to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know you can't really take credit for it in the sense of like the narrative was already established, but I think you did a really beautiful job in the last, even just handful of pages describing really how unique the ultimate end of the story really is.
Thank you.
So, and I'm carefully stepping around all of the spoilers that
because I haven't read it yet and I cannot wait because it sounds amazing.
Good.
Yeah. No, it was really incredible. And there's so much history in it, which I know that not everybody that's interested in true crime or the Pacific Northwest is necessarily interested in the history, but there's a lot in there that is just, it's not something that you would be able to find without, spending the year and a half doing the research. So, seeing all of that compiled and really, it gives us the whole portrait of, historically what's happening, not just in the Pacific Northwest at the time of the crime, but like you say, abroad. This really was, it affected the whole world, I think.
Sure. Yep.
So.
All right, guys. Now, officially, this is a wrap on the Weyerhaeuser case. We want to say thank you one more time to Brian for agreeing to do the interview with us about his fantastic book, and we hope that you guys will check it out. If you are dying to hear the full-length interview, you can get onto Patreon like Cassie told you before.
Yeah, do what I told you.
Do what she says.
Oh.
Yay! Oh, George, we love you.
That was so good. And it's like, it feels really good to have like a good ending.
Happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect this to be a trend or anything, but...
I know.
All right. You want to go eat some Panda Express?
I do.
All right.
I really, really do.
I know, right? Okay. Well, I guess that's a wrap. Okay, bye. All right.
Have a creepy ass day. See you next Tuesday.
So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, Maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlin, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'. A hole in his mattress was discovered that matched the size and shape of the makeshift guns that were then discovered in a neighboring cell.
I thought you were going to say his penis.
Oh, God. Cassie, not that kind of gun.
There was a hole
like a
in his
real
mattress
gun.
that
Oh.
matched the size and shape.
How do we always come back to dicks?
Okay, cut.